Picture a woman in a mountain village in the Hunza Valley of northern Pakistan. It is 1963. She is 71 years old. She rises before dawn, tends her terraced garden, walks 3 miles to the market, and returns carrying 40 pounds of grain on her back. She sleeps deeply every night. She has no anxiety medication. She has never heard the word cortisol. And she will live to be 104. Now picture the average person in the modern world. They wake up tired after 7 hours of sleep. Their belly carries weight that no diet seems to move. Their mind races at 2 in the morning. Their jaw is tight. Their shoulders never fully release. They are not sick, not officially. Every blood test comes back normal. And yet something is wrong. Something is slowly, systemically wrong. That something has a name. It is cortisol, and it is one of the most misunderstood hormones in the human body. Cortisol was designed for survival. A brief spike when danger appears, then a return to baseline. But in the modern world, the spike never ends. And when cortisol runs chronically high, it does not just make you feel stressed. It physically destroys tissue. It reshapes your body. It rewires your brain. Today we are covering 5 hidden signs that cortisol is already damaging your body, and number 5 will shock you because it has nothing to do with stress. And we will end with one ancient root that indigenous healers across 3 continents have used for over 2,000 years to stop it. Subscribe to The Hidden Herbalist right now. This one changes everything. Number 1, the belly that won't move. You have reduced your calories. You exercise. And still, the fat around your midsection stays soft, stubborn, and seemingly immune to everything you do. You blame your metabolism. You blame age. The real answer is cortisol, and understanding why changes everything. Cortisol is a glucocorticoid, a hormone that directly governs fat storage strategy in the body. Under normal conditions, cortisol mobilizes fat from storage for energy. But when cortisol remains chronically elevated, the body enters a different mode entirely. It begins preferentially storing fat in visceral adipose tissue, the deep fat layer surrounding your abdominal organs. This location is not random. Visceral fat cells have a higher density of cortisol receptors than fat cells elsewhere in the body. Chronically high cortisol essentially instructs your body to deposit fat at exactly the one location most associated with cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome. A landmark study published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine found that women with higher cortisol reactivity accumulated significantly more abdominal fat than women with lower reactivity independent of total body weight. The research team from Yale University, led by Dr. Alyssa Eppel, confirmed that cortisol, not diet, was the primary driver of central adiposity in their cohort. Traditional Ayurvedic physicians in ancient India identified this pattern thousands of years before cortisol had a name. They described it as the heaviness of the fire-damaged body, a body whose internal heat regulation had been disrupted by persistent mental agitation. Your midsection is not a diet failure. It is a cortisol signature. Number 2, the sleep that never restores. You sleep, but you do not recover. You close your eyes for 7, 8, even 9 hours and wake up feeling as though you have been working all night. Your dreams are vivid and exhausting. You grind your teeth. You wake at 3 or 4 in the morning with a racing heart and a mind already moving at full speed. This is not insomnia. This is cortisol rhythm collapse. In a healthy body, cortisol follows a precise 24-hour rhythm. It peaks sharply at dawn, the cortisol awakening response surging between 6 and 8 in the morning to mobilize energy for the day ahead. Throughout the day, it gradually declines, reaching its lowest point around midnight to allow deep restorative sleep. This rhythm is called the diurnal cortisol curve. Chronic stress destroys it. When the stress system remains activated, cortisol levels stay elevated into the evening. Your brain cannot distinguish the end of the workday from a continuing threat. The hormone that is supposed to be at its lowest at midnight remains elevated. Deep sleep is suppressed. Growth hormone, which is released almost exclusively during deep sleep, cannot do its repair work. Cellular recovery is interrupted night after night. A 2018 study published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology found that individuals with flattened diurnal cortisol curves, meaning cortisol that stays high in the evening instead of declining, showed assurably accelerated biological aging markers compared to those with healthy cortisol rhythms. Ancient Chinese medicine described this condition as fire ascending at the hour of the rat. the midnight awakening, and prescribed specific root medicines to restore what they called the descending of yang energy. The body already knows how to sleep. Cortisol is preventing it. Number 3, the immune system that betrays you. You get every cold that comes near you. You have recurring infections, slow healing wounds, persistent skin flare-ups, or an autoimmune condition that no doctor has been able to fully explain. You have been told your immune system is either overreacting or underperforming. What you have not been told is that chronically elevated cortisol is directly responsible for both conditions simultaneously. This is the great immunological paradox of cortisol. In short bursts, cortisol is powerfully anti-inflammatory. It is the mechanism behind corticosteroid drugs. But when sustained, it triggers immune dysregulation that swings in both directions. Chronic cortisol elevation first suppresses your cellular immune response, the arm of immunity that fights viruses, bacteria, and abnormal cells. This is why chronically stressed people are statistically more vulnerable to infections. Then, when the body attempts to compensate, inflammatory signaling becomes dysregulated, triggering the kind of systemic low-grade inflammation now linked to every major chronic disease. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences reviewed 40 years of psychoneuroimmunology research and concluded that psychological stress mediated primarily through cortisol was among the most consistent predictors of immune dysfunction across all age groups. Roman physicians in the 1st century AD observed that soldiers returning from prolonged campaigns, men whose bodies had been under sustained physiological stress, were prone to festering wounds and fevers that healed far more slowly than the wounds of soldiers who had been briefly but intensely engaged in battle. They did not have the word cortisol, they had the observation. A body under relentless pressure stops protecting itself. Number 4, the memory that fractures. You walk into a room and forget why you came. You lose words mid-sentence. You read the same paragraph. Graph 3 times and retain nothing. Your concentration dissolves. You feel a cognitive fog that no amount of sleep or caffeine fully clears. Most people attribute this to age, to screen time, to busyness. The underlying mechanism is structural. Cortisol at chronic levels physically damages the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the brain region primarily responsible for the formation of new memories and the consolidation of learning. It is also one of the brain regions with the highest concentration of glucocorticoid receptors, making it extraordinarily sensitive to cortisol. Under chronic exposure, cortisol triggers the retraction of dendritic spines in hippocampal neurons, the microscopic branches that neurons use to communicate. Connections are physically severed. New memory formation becomes impaired. Existing memories become harder to retrieve. This is not metaphor. This is structural neuroscience. A landmark study published in Nature Neuroscience by Dr. Bruce M.C. Ewan at Rockefeller University demonstrated that chronic stress produced measurable atrophy in the CA3 region of the rat hippocampus, and that this atrophy was directly proportional to cortisol exposure, not to age. Subsequent human neuroimaging studies confirmed that individuals with chronically elevated cortisol showed significantly reduced hippocampal volume compared to age-matched controls. Tibetan physicians of the 8th century described a condition called the fog behind the eyes, a syndrome of memory fragmentation, word loss, and inability to retain new learning that they attributed to prolonged fear and grief disrupting the channels of mental clarity. The fog you are living in is not a character flaw. It is a measurable hormonal injury. Number 5, the heart that hardens. Here is the one that will genuinely shock you because it has nothing to do with how stressed you feel. You may feel calm. You may have adapted to your cortisol levels so completely that you no longer perceive yourself as stressed. But inside your arterial walls, the damage is proceeding regardless of how you feel. Chronic cortisol elevation promotes a specific and well-documented cascade of cardiovascular damage. First, it raises blood pressure by increasing sodium retention and causing vasoconstriction. Second, it elevates blood glucose through gluconeogenesis, forcing the liver to release stored glucose. Even when you have not eaten, which increases glycation damage to arterial walls. Third, and most insidiously, cortisol promotes endothelial dysfunction, the breakdown of the delicate cellular lining inside your arteries, which is now recognized as the earliest and most significant stage of atherosclerosis. A study published in the European Heart Journal tracked cortisol levels in over 4,000 adults over 10 years, and found that individuals in the highest cortisol quartile had a significantly elevated risk of major cardiovascular events independent of traditional risk factors, including blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking, and diet. You can feel fine. You can pass every stress test your doctor orders. And the endothelium, a layer of cells 1 cell thick lining every vessel in your rash, and be quietly breaking down for years before any conventional marker catches it. Physicians in ancient Egypt described this as the slow fire in the channels of the heart, a condition they observed in administrators and scribes who carried heavy burdens of responsibility for long periods without rest. The heart does not announce its damage, it simply accumulates it. For just a moment. You now know the 5 hidden ways cortisol is working against your body right now, the belly that will not move no matter what you eat, the sleep that never restores, the immune system that cannot hold, the memory that fractures, and the silent cardiovascular damage that asks no permission. Every one of these is real, everyone is measurable, and everyone responds to what is coming next. It is a single ancient root that has been validated in over 300 clinical studies. Subscribe right now and stay with me. Ashwagandha. The ancient root, in Sanskrit it means the smell of a horse, signifying that it imparts the strength and vitality of a stallion. Ashwagandha, botanically known as Withania somnifera, has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for over 3,000 years. It appears in the Charaka Samhita, one of the oldest medical texts in human history, as the premier Rasayana, a class of medicines dedicated to rejuvenation, longevity, and the restoration of vital force. It was prescribed to warriors before battle, to the elderly for restoration, and to anyone whose life had depleted their fundamental reserves. What makes ashwagandha one of the most clinically validated plants in the modern pharmacological literature is not that it suppresses cortisol artificially. It is that it regulates the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the actual biological system responsible for cortisol production. Ashwagandha's primary bioactive compounds, with analydes, have been shown to modulate the feedback sensitivity of the HPA axis, reducing the magnitude of the cortisol stress response without eliminating the healthy cortisol awakening response needed for morning alertness. A double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial published in the Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine found that participants who took 300 milligrams of ashwagandha root extract twice daily for 60 days showed a 27.9% reduction in serum cortisol compared to the placebo group, along with significant improvements in stress scores, sleep quality, and self-reported well-being. A second landmark trial published in Medicine found reductions in cortisol of over 30% alongside improvements in memory, reaction time, and cognitive function. The ancient physicians who prescribed this root did not have Ave cortisol assays or double-blind trials. They had 3,000 years of observation across millions of patients. The root was right. The science confirmed it. You now know the 5 hidden signs that cortisol is already at work inside your body: the unmovable belly, the unrestorative sleep, the compromised immune system, the fracturing memory, and the silent cardiovascular damage that proceeds without announcement. And you now know that ashwagandha, one of the oldest medicines in human history, has been validated in peer-reviewed clinical trials to reduce cortisol by over 30% and restore the biological systems that chronic stress dismantles. If this video gave you a name for something you have been feeling for years, hit that like button right now. It brings this knowledge to the people who need it most. Leave a comment below. Are you going to try ashwagandha, or do you believe stress is just something you have to manage? Tell me. Subscribe and hit the bell. The Hidden Herbalist posts every week. What we uncover next may be the most important thing you watch all year.